Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I am super excited to spend the next hour with you. To start with, a year ago, we were here in Amsterdam, and we were talking about AI and the possibilities that might bring. Fast forward 12 months, and today, we're not talking about possibilities. We're talking about production. We're talking about scale. We're talking about real use cases in your environments. Now, but if we're honest with ourselves, for the practitioners in the room, for the architects, the people that build our networks, that keep the lights on, this era is going to bring about a new type of pressure for all of us. It's going to bring about pressure because of the pace of the business is fundamentally changing. For decades, we built networks for a human-paced world. We built them for users that click on links. We built them for IT teams that had the luxury of planning change windows over weekends. That world is now gone. Today, we have to think of networks not only for the people and devices that connect to them, but we have to think about networks for a new type of user. They're AI agents, and the workloads that these AI agents are going to bring. And now, if we talk about these agents are relentless. They are bursty. They require a new level of latency. And they're not going to wait for that 4-hour troubleshooting in order to be able to resolve an issue. Our traditional networks and the traditional network operations that powers them just simply can't keep up with this new AI era. So to thrive, we need to not just build a faster network, we need to build a new network. And importantly, we need to build a new operating model to support that network. As we see this transformation, and if I look around this room and I think about all of the sectors that are here today, all of you are feeling this change. Think about manufacturing. Right here in Central Europe, we have a home appliance manufacturer who's seen an explosion of autonomous guided vehicles across their environments. These autonomous guided vehicles are leveraging microsegmentation because ultimately underlying these vehicles is multiple different vendors that have to work together in unison in real time. And if there's a blip on that network, the factory floor stops. Or think about healthcare, where we're seeing a new type of AI diagnostic imaging to revolutionize how patients can be served. But this AI diagnostics is going to create bursts of secure network traffic across the campus. Or in healthcare, in retail, when you think about AI agents providing a new way to be able to bring together the physical and the virtual world to provide new forms of personalized customer experiences. Ultimately, what we see is that this is when we talk about the One Cisco story for the future workplace, about how do we transform not only your business, but transform it through a set of new networks. And a future-proof workplace is not just about how we reinvent and deliver better Wi-Fi. It's about how we deliver an intelligent and use intelligent infrastructure to simplify the operations and to empower the productivity. But doing so requires a new kind of network in a new architecture purpose-built for these challenges and the opportunities of this next era. Many of you yesterday heard G2 lay out this vision, a future-proof workplace built upon intelligence, on simplicity, and a fundamentally new architecture. And today, in this session, in this deep dive, we want to break down this new strategy through these 3 core pillars. First, how we deliver simplified operations powered by AgenticOps. We're moving away from just simple chat-based interfaces and communication to true agentic capabilities to revolutionize operations. But we're also looking at how we can drive security fused into the network. Because in this era, security cannot be thought of as a bolt-on. It must be woven into the fabric itself. And we need to deliver scalable AI-ready devices because none of this works without a rock-solid foundation. So at the end of the day, though, AgenticOps is not about replacing the human expert. In many ways, the humans are more important than ever before. But what we have to deliver in this new era is around how we can deliver a level of augmentation, a set of digital teammates, to be able to take the manual out of manual labor. You know, it's one thing to really kind of hear me talk and be able to see this vision laid out, but it's another to be able to hear from one of your peers about how they're leading into this next era, how they're delivering mission-critical infrastructure. And so with that, I want to go ahead and welcome on Robert from Bayer, who leads connectivity, to be able to share his perspectives. And so Robert, come on stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You know, it's a treat to be able to get to spend a few minutes with you. As I was sharing right before this, my family comes from a farming background, and my younger brother actually works for Bayer. And so, you know, first of all, can you just share a little bit about from an overview of Bayer and your role?
Sure. At Bayer, I do have the pleasure of leading the connectivity unit department. We do serve 650 of our sites. Those are production sites, those are R&D sites that do play into our mission, health for all, hunger for none. And there we're responsible for the wide area network, wireless, switching, and everything that comes along with it.
So, you know, we've talked about the challenges in this kind of new decade, this new era. Can you talk a little bit about some of the kind of biggest changes that you've seen within network operations at Bayer?
Yeah. One of the biggest changes we had started to implement roughly 3 years ago when we went from classical networking towards software-defined networking in our global network modernization program. At the same time, we also were focusing really on getting more and more efficient in our department. So just remembering, like 5 years back, we were looking at more than 100 people really doing operations on a day-to-day basis. Today, we do it with roughly 30. So this is from the technical side of view, whilst, and you already said it in the beginning, our consumers are dramatically changing. We're moving from rather static environment to a more and more agile and to a more and more AI-driven environment where we simply have to be faster.
And you talk about that managing through the complexity as you add sites and you add applications, but you just talked about dramatically reducing the size of the operations team. So how do these challenges show up to you and your overall team?
So adding sites, adding new applications, the biggest challenges and hurdles that we do currently see is, on one end, the standardization that we do see, so we're looking continuously for patterns to be implemented. On the other side, we are looking forward to standardize our processes really across the unit. So we do have another team next to us that is taking care of security. We do have the application colleagues who are working with us. So having that end-to-end view on the process and that accountability is really the challenge that we're looking at.
You know, we talk about connectivity as an end-to-end problem, but connectivity isn't just about reliability. It's about how do you deliver a great experience. And so with your teams and ultimately Bayer spanning so many different places around the world, you know, what are some of the hardest problems that you're facing and that you have to solve when it comes to delivering a great connected experience?
One of the biggest challenges is really reliability, and reliability for us goes beyond stability, and that are repeatable results. So going into the business process, delivering really what the consumer wants, being on the site, being embedded in their OT teams, being embedded in their research teams, and therefore better understanding what they really need, then to adjust the processes on our end, adjust the technology so that we can serve best.
You know, and when you and I were talking last week, you shared a little bit about this network modernization journey that you're on. And so can you talk about the business outcomes that you're trying to drive through the modernization, and what is that first step or that next step you're taking within your modernization effort?
Sure. Some of the business outcomes that we're trying to drive is getting the researcher, getting the production crew closer to what they really want to implement. So we do have researchers in one of our radiology sites that do have to test new devices that they develop on a day-to-day basis. which means they have to add new devices to the network. They have to require direct internet access. Sometimes they need a different setup. So their requirements are changing on a daily and sometimes hourly basis. What we're trying to give them is a product that reacts to what they need, that fulfills their requirements, and that doesn't take weeks to be implemented, but where they do get a result really within minutes. So we help them to get to the market in a way faster pace.
Yeah, that pace is truly accelerating for you. And so when we think about the application of AI inside of network operations, what are some of the ways that you're approaching it from having to consider the constraints that buyer has in terms of the compliance and regulation?
Yeah. In terms of compliance and regulations, we do have to uphold, and we like to uphold all of the FDA requirements to make sure that the aspirin that you take today has the same quality like tomorrow, which means we have to have repetitive outcomes. So that's why right now we are looking at AI to assist in operations, to help our operators on a day-to-day basis to drive decisions in a better way, in a faster way. And as time develops and we understand the risks better that do come along with it, I'm also looking forward then to increase really that impact from AI-assisted operations really to an AI ops model that is going to be more pure and more driven by the AI and less than by the engineer.
And so when you think about that operational workflow, as you fast forward to the next couple of years, what are the areas within that workflow where you see it providing the most value for your team?
So the most value for my team will be to react and understand what are the requirements and the necessary steps before and after what we do. The biggest benefit in agentic operations that I personally see is to have that holistic understanding of the business process that is at hand, of the case that is at hand, the service request you call it, because there will be agents that we will be serving. There will be cloud applications that we will be serving. There will be security items that have to follow what we do. And AI will hopefully be capable of handling all of that in the right context moving forward.
Yep. And so when you talk about AI agents, we should also talk about security, but I want to talk about security through how you work and kind of bridge across these different functions. And so you mentioned security operations are handled by a different team from the connectivity team. So what are some of the challenges that's creating for you, and how do you see that really bridging the gap in the future?
The challenges start at having the same interfaces, having the same targets and the same goals within those two organizations. So as we go away from a more human-centric and more into a process-centric view, I hope that we will overcome some of those hurdles and the people will be able to just focus on delivering new solutions working together. And the day-to-day operations will be highly standardized through the interfaces that each and every one of the group is going to create.
And so talk a little bit more about the kind of the organizational hurdles that you're encountering, especially as you think about scaling the infrastructure across Bayer for AI and some of these new digital demands.
Yeah. What we do see right now is there is a lot of tribal knowledge when we're going into major incidents, when we're going into debugging, where there are individuals who are with the company for 20, 30 years, who know pretty much everything that is available in our environment. Moving forward, this is going to be more and more complex. As we all know, technology gets even more complex as we speak. There is more that you have to know everything, and I believe it's at this point in time not possible really to have that tribal knowledge of everything moving forward. So we're building on AI, helping us, driving debugging, driving incident analytics, moving forward to give us that holistic overview, and to not rely on highly valued individuals right now that do deserve to take a break every now and then.
And as we were sharing and talking about last week, you reminded me that in its simplest form, Bayer's a research company. And so you need to support the research teams that are looking to bring in new applications and new devices. So how are you balancing their needs with the requirements and when you think about that security and compliance?
We're in deep discussion with security and in alignment how we can use patterns, use standards, and not really have to deeply analyze every individual use case. As the analytics process on that today takes somewhere between a week and a month, really to have that thoroughly worked through and then adapted to what could be the right security statute that you want to implement. So moving forward, what I'm really looking for is to use these patterns and have these patterns then again implemented on an automatic basis. So something that can fit can be implemented in mere hours.
Yeah.
And that is a real factor if you think about that there is hardware like DNA sequences that do cost far above $100,000. And so every day that you have that standing around, every day that a researcher is unable to make use of that means that there is potentially a day that we will be later to market, and that also means that potentially a day later we're going to have not just a new trade on our seats, but that we might have a medication that might saving lives moving forward.
Yeah, that's a powerful story. We got time for maybe one more question. So when you think about this network modernization journey, what are you most excited about next within Bayer?
I'm most excited about seeing the organizational change. As I see how the organization is adapting to it, new talent is joining really our organization, embracing that new way of working and making use of it. And this is attracting new people, and this just increases the energy. And I love to be working on that forefront of technology with them and to learn alongside.
That's great. Robert, I wish we had more time, but with that, I want to thank you for sharing your story, to be able to share it with this group and where you are in your journey. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. As we go into this next section and begin to talk about agentic operations, I want to start by thinking about a question. How many of us in this room feel like on a daily basis we're asked to do the impossible? There's an inherent paradox that we see where networks are becoming more and more complex, but at the same time, we're being asked to do it, as Robert shared, with less people than ever before. We've all had these days where we seem like we spent the entire day chasing down a DHCP pool exhaustion problem. And so at Cisco, we asked ourselves, what if we could do better? Right? What if we could be able to augment your teams with a set of digital teammates that can help you to be able to scale your impact? So at the Cornerstone, we believe that answer is AgenticOps. And so I want to spend a minute here talking about what AgenticOps really means and breaking it down across these four core areas. At its foundational level, it's the underlying data, having the widest set of cross-domain telemetry that then is built upon a set of models, an ensemble of models that leverage both the leading foundational models, but importantly also specialized models like our deep network model, where we have the ability to codify decades of networking expertise to be able to then allow the capabilities to be expressed. Now, these get expressed then through a purposeful set of agentic capabilities that we'll show here in a demo for how we can be able to drive faster troubleshooting, faster optimization, faster validation. And then allowing you to interact with these models through these agentic capabilities through a different purposeful interactions, whether that's specific dashboards, whether that's the assistant, whether that's AI Canvas, whether that's cloud control. Now, I'm so excited for what we've launched here at Cisco Live across troubleshooting, where we are delivering what used to take hours, if not longer, down into minutes to be able to drive a level of autonomous troubleshooting around optimization for how do we keep your networks in the best state possible automatically, or how we think about trusted validation so that we can make every change not only safer, but more predictive. Now, when we talk about driving these agentic workflows, one other important area that I want to express is that agents by nature are a non-deterministic system. But when you're making changes on your network, non-determinism is the last thing you want. And so what we talk about inside Cisco is how do we bring a level of deterministic execution? So while the agents can be able to plan and reason and come up with suggested actions, these can be backed through governed workflows to ensure that we maintain the level of networks. And so with that, we have Raj on stage. Raj is at the forefront of helping to drive a number of these key capabilities. And so Raj, I want you to be able to bring these new capabilities to life. So let's go ahead and have you start the demo.
Absolutely. Joe, thank you so much. Folks, I am so privileged to be able to share more about our AgenticOps capabilities. The way that I see it, Cisco's been providing you incredible insights about your infrastructure and your network. We're building on that foundation with AI in order to provide you actionable recommendations and actions. And if you think about why we're doing this, it's to simplify your day-to-day life and get you more productive, and through the use of AI to deliver better experiences consistently through the experiences that you're familiar with. But we're also going to work on, and by the way, this might look familiar, new experiences that center in on how your users and your colleagues experience their day-to-day life. To that point, what you see behind me is the experience metrics in the Meraki dashboard. Now, if you're anything like me, before a meeting, you open your laptop first thing, settle yourself, and then hope really, really hard that you get solid bars of Wi-Fi connection. And if you don't, it's one of the most frustrating parts of your day. Now imagine, that happens all the time, consistently inside of your organization. And that's why we're bringing to you thousands of different aggregate data points together in one dashboard where you can see what really matters to users. Things like successful connections or time to connect. Now, we're going to go through this example real quick and take a look at a day in the life. I have my handy-dandy to-do list over here. Walk through it with me, and we'll see how your daily life transforms with AgenticOps. So my first item on my to-do list is, it looks like there's a VIP issue. There's an executive complaining of access to WebEx. The dashboard visually guides me to successful connects and DHCP. I want to take a look at clients because there's a particular executive client that's having some issues. And Cisco's agentic capabilities for troubleshooting allow me to ask in natural language what the issue is. As it's going through the reasoning, it's providing an analysis of all of the different data already available in the dashboard and providing me information in the form of a recommendation for what I should do next. Here's a great thing. In this same panel, I can also ask the assistant to then give me a recommendation. In this case, it looks like I have to check the DHCP configuration. It goes through an analysis step by step, provides a little bit more about its logic, and I can ask it to actually take the next step, provide me an actionable plan that I can execute in order to expand the DHCP pool. All I have to do, and by the way, all I'm doing is just clicking around here, letting the AI drive the bus. I will see that the DHCP pool has now been expanded, and the client that was having DHCP connection issues has now been resolved. All right. Well, I just saved the day. So I'm going to go check out what's going on with the rest of my organization, and I expect to see a field of green. That is not green. Looks more like tulips, but we're in Amsterdam, so, you know. So I'm actually not worried. And the reason why I'm not worried is I have an architectural expert at my fingertips. Folks, we've brought decades of experience delivering to you Cisco-validated designs that contain architectural best practices and imbued our agentic capabilities of optimization with that knowledge to contextualize recommendations to your network. So now you no longer have to think twice about being able to figure out, oh, by the way, I should be able to enable 6 gigahertz on a bunch of my access points. Clearly, I'll be able to release some congestion on the 5 gigahertz band. But let's say you didn't know any of that. If you pop into the recommendations tab, you can actually see not just the suggested action, but you can see the expected impact of that action. You can actually see more information about exactly what I just said, the benefits of enabling 6 gigahertz without moving anywhere. And in fact, not only can you get that recommendation, you can take action and accept those recommendations from the same panel as well. I haven't even finished my coffee. I already got through 2 things on my to-do list. VIP issue, check organization. What's next? Oh, this is great. Security audit. Okay, well, I'm going to need a lot more coffee for this one. And definitely not getting through it in one day. I'm going to have to flip back and forth between standards documents and figure out how I go and gather information inside the organization. It's going to take me a while to do that. Or I can hit a button. I flip back to my AI assistant, and I can see performing a security audit of this network. Now, this is really, really important, folks. Personal note, I struggled a little bit with calculus. Why? I would always skip steps. They would say, show your work. Well, I took that to heart. Our Cisco AgenticOps capabilities for validation iterate through dense standards and work through a series of different steps to reason across all of the different requirements that would be necessary for validating your environment. As you can see here, it walks through for a security audit based on a runbook methodology for Arch 003, listing out the network devices, assessing layer 3 and level 7 rules architecture, evaluating your VPN security configuration. This would take me hours, but guess what? All of this information is already available in your dashboard itself, and the agentic capability for validation is performing that systematically. Now, I mentioned that we want to see, and for the sake of time, so I'll get pulled off here, I'm going to skip forward for a second. We want to see not just showing the work, but the results as well. And as you can see, excuse me, the full audit report is here. It's provided me top 3 immediate actions, gone through key findings, including actionable areas that I need to go and resolve to improve my security posture, metrics for security, and finally, recommendations in a prioritized order. But remember, recommendations and action. Not only is it providing me for this particular audit all of the things I need to keep in mind, it's also giving me the steps for resolution piece by piece should I choose to action that as well. Okay, all right. That was pretty easy. I got through all 3 items. But Raj, this is Cisco Live EMEA. The people want more. What if I wanted to provide all these capabilities wrapped in one experience? I want to avoid common pitfalls. I want to make sure that I adhere to best practices architecturally. I want to make sure that I double-check my SOPs and my own business practices to deliver the best experience for my colleagues and my users. I can do that. Flip back to the AI assistant. As you can see here, I've asked it to create a network optimized for WebEx meetings and enabling troubleshooting monitoring for WebEx performance. It's gone through, created a full plan. I'll spare you guys from reading this whole entire blurb here. But it's 19 steps. And here's the best part. Scroll, scroll, scroll. I was able to then take all of this planning and deploy it directly into a workflow, agentically created in order to action it inside of my environment. Now, sorry, this is amazing. Okay, all right, so folks, just to recap. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, just to recap. Our agentic capabilities for troubleshooting reduces problem solving from days to minutes. The idea is that we want to take the trouble out of troubleshooting. It is no longer a long, drawn-out process. Teams can go straight from identifying an issue to knowing the root cause and the right fix within minutes. Our agentic capabilities for optimization also allow us to tune the network to stay at its optimal point without waiting for something to break. And with a live model of user experience, we contextualize all of those recommendations and expert actions within the environment, allowing the network to keep pace with real conditions, closing the gap between optimization and application. And finally, my favorite, validation. You saw how our agents make every change validated and double-checked before they take place. There's less second-guessing, more predictability, and stronger compliance, so teams can move fast, but with control. And you also were able to look at our experience metrics, how teams can shift their focus from simply monitoring systems and just device connections to truly understanding and appreciate how users are experiencing the network. In a single click, you can get connectivity, capacity, quality, and peace. Joe, this is how AgenticOps turns day-to-day operations into opportunities for teams to do more with less friction and more impact. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Raj. All right. I loved all those capabilities, but let's keep the story moving as we think about what's next, and let's talk a little bit about the campus. And I love talking about the campus because in many ways, the campus is the most chaotic part of our environment. It's where our people, it's where our devices, and it's where all of our guests collide together. And for years, right, we've thought about the campus and campus security like a castle, where we try to build the biggest moat around the perimeter, and we assume that everything inside is safe. But in this new era, right, everything needs to be rethought. We need to believe that our campus is inherently porous. We're seeing an explosion of new types of devices, whether these are IoT devices or OT devices across our networks. These devices are not just talking out, they're talking across each other, right? And the challenge we hear from you is, how do we stop a threat from moving laterally across my network? In doing so, how do we stop that without making the network inherently so complex that I can't operate it? Traditionally, we would think about security from a firewalling perspective of say, let's send all of our traffic to a centralized appliance. But that's a costly approach, right? It creates an inherent bottleneck with our environment, and we should think of this as really the legacy way of thinking about security. At Cisco, right, we believe that we need to do something different. We need to fuse security into the fabric itself. And we need to protect it in a way that treats your infrastructure as a seamless end-to-end security architecture. Right, by providing you a clear, unified visibility, whether that's across your clouds, across your data centers, across your workplaces. And so we're helping customers move from this open and flat network architecture to one where we provide minimum access that they need in order to just do their jobs. What underpins this is, first off, microsegmentation, right? How we enable every segment to be inherently isolated from one another. How we provide an AI-powered device classification, so you always know what's connected to your network. And how you provide continuous monitoring, so only the authorized users in the devices are able to access the resources they need. And Cisco Secure Access is a key part, right? It goes further by ensuring the applications are only visible to those that are explicitly authorized. And with Cisco, what's powering our architecture is the ability to have common policy created once, distributed enforcement across the entirety of your network, so that you can apply policies everywhere without slowing down users, and importantly, without harming the inherent experience across that network. Right? So when networking and security are working together, they deliver a resilience and protection that goes far beyond what they could do independently. All right, this is the power of what Cisco can provide with secure networking. And so to share a little bit more of that, we've got Steven from here from our team. Steven's got a great demo that shows about how we can be able to bring identity, security into a new campus environment. So Steven, let's go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Couldn't ask for a better intro. Joe really, before we go to the demo, can we go back to the, I want to set up the, I want to frame up, yeah. So exactly what Joe just explained is what we're going to try to work through in this demo. So we've been given an opportunity, and the opportunity is bring together a few different components that would normally take days versus hours versus minutes. So from a customer perspective, we're using a healthcare example, and this example can be expanded into others, but we've got a healthcare customer that has multiple locations. They have a mix of deployments. We call them hybrid deployments. They're cloud and they're on-prem. So we've got multiple management consoles from Cisco, controlling, monitoring, and enabling security across the network. We've got a distributed network footprint. We've got strict compliance requirements. And then finally, multiple network and security domains. So what's the opportunity? How do I do this across domains? How do I do this by enabling agentic AI ops? And then how do I make it easy so that I can abstract all the complexity and focus on the operational simplicity that we've been talking about here. So if we could cut over to the demo real quick. So one of the first things with operational simplicity in these hybrid environments, one of the innovations we wanted to showcase here was our global overview. It gives us the ability to bring together what we've seen from our cloud management products as well as our on-prem with Catalyst Center. So in this case, we've got 11 plus locations with a mix of them. So what we want to do is we're going to focus on how we accomplish some of the tasks. We're going to go in. Now, one thing I wanted to frame up first. In this demo, one of the things that we want to do, or we've been asked to do, is create an IoT network, right, for our medical devices, provide access to a specific set of users, and then at the same time distribute this policy throughout the entire architecture through both on-prem and cloud-based mechanisms for firewalls, VPN users, without having to actually know the construct within the network and have to communicate something that would take days or weeks to be able to accelerate that down into a few minutes. So we're going to go into one of our architectures here. We're going to use our Amsterdam network, and we're going to use the AI assistant. So in this case, very much like Raj has showed before, we're going to use our AI assistant to act as that intermediary between us and Cisco workflows to be able to take intent into action. So what Raj was talking about before, what we're doing with RCA, what we're doing about with some of the other capabilities, using that with our workflows product, we're going directly from intent to the actual action. So what we want to do is we're just going to ask it to create a new network for our IoT devices. Once we actually enter that in, we're going to get prompted back from that, and it's going to say, here's all the things in order to do this that we're going to have to touch. Normally, if you're a network operator, your head starts to spin because we have to touch ICE. We have to touch our individual dashboards. We have to go into secure access. So what we want to do is make sure we're coordinating all this, removing some of the human component out of this so that we can have that common policy, as Joe had mentioned, and that common policy is the same across the network and being able to be delivered down across the individual domains and individual platforms. Now, the most important piece of this, as Raj had mentioned, is the feedback coming out of this. So we want to know exactly what we did so that we can make sure that it was pushed out correctly. So all we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, this is what we want to run. We click on yes, and then we're prompted by the assistant with the information. It's asking us, giving us suggestions on what do we want to enable on the network. In this case, we're calling it an IoT network. We're asking it for the right encryption. So again, we're starting at wireless, moving throughout the network all the way to security and firewall policies. As it says, it's asking us, do we want to deploy this on a firewall? Do we want to deploy it on a remote access VPN? And the critical piece, as Joe mentioned before, we're using micro-segmentation here. So we're going to use, for us, SGTs or secure group tags, but as a user, network operator, I don't need to know the tag numbers. All I want to do is I just want to know the names. We enter in the names, and it comes back, and the AI assistant will give us a list of things to change that it's going to touch, and then we move forward and acknowledge it again, and then it's going to actually go through for us and create the policies and initiate the activities. So again, in a matter of minutes versus a matter of hours or days, we're able to go through, instantiate the policies, issue the commands to each of the individual platforms, and then come back and have it verified. And I know it's a lot, but we'll just to show through, every one of our platforms comes back into the AI assistant, allowing us to see exactly what was configured without leaving that portal. So we don't have to bounce to each one of those to make sure it was, but unfortunately, I'm going to bounce to each one of them for you anyway to show you that it actually did work. So, but at the end of the day, it gives you suggestions on where to go to look. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump into our dashboard to show Access Manager. Now, again, Access Manager plus ICE, those are our two identity platforms that allow us to come together, distribute group tags across our entire infrastructure, and provide policy. So this was created dynamically through AI Assistant, through workflows, and we can actually see that we have our two MRI networks, our users and our devices, and the policies dynamically created to permit them and deny everything else. So again, I didn't have to know anything about SGTs. I didn't have to know anything about the underlying infrastructure. I asked the AI assistant a question, it came back and it configured it for me. And then the same thing, if I go into the adaptive policy piece, I can actually see up at the top here, I can actually see that an access rule that was created to assign my MRI devices to a network and classify them correctly, all within the context of the AI assistant. And then moving into Cisco Security Cloud Control, we also bring Security Cloud Control into play to be able to show that the fact that we've actually configured the VPN components as well. So with that, I know I've got a couple minutes left, and what I would like to do is switch over to the slides, please, so that we can discuss a couple new interesting innovations that come along the way. So these are a couple things that actually are really exciting that we've actually started to focus on from a firewalling perspective. So as Joe had mentioned, it's great to have a firewall on the network, but what we want to do, we want to be able to distribute those policies and be able to redirect traffic. So we've come out with our service security insertion, and what SSI does is allows us to redirect flows, individual flows, to the firewall. So we don't have to have a firewall at every access layer right now. We can pick and choose using SDA to bring those flows back to a centralized firewall and only inspect the traffic that you think is critical. One of the other innovations, again, if I look at PQC or post-quantum crypto, it's a huge topic now. One of my favorite topics actually to talk about. So, at Cisco, we always bring best-in-class products. So post-quantum crypto is going to be embedded in all of our products. But the end goal for us is to deliver best-in-class architecture with a post-quantum encrypted secure architecture end-to-end. So right now we've got our switches and our routers that are supporting it. Looking forward to bring it out as the industry comes along. So again, protecting us for the future. And finally, talking about protecting mission-critical operations. We've heard from our customers we can't just have mission-critical capabilities. We also have to have mission-critical abilities to upgrade software. So we have XFSU, it's our fast software upgrade. So we're bringing this so that in order to provide that always-on, always secure network, we've got to be able to bring in and upgrade our software near instantaneously so that we can actually provide that continuity of operations for our customers. So with that, Joe, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Stephen.
Absolutely.
What a great job, Stephen. Thanks for sharing that demo. And as we kind of switch into this last section, we've spent the first couple parts here and chapters talking about the brain of your network, talking about the AI agents and the inherent reasoning within it. But the reality, right, is a brain is going to be only as effective as the body it controls. And so to scale in this new era, we must also talk about our muscle, right, the scalable devices underneath it. And for decades, as an industry, right, we've built hardware for a human-paced world. And as we've talked about today, we design routers and we design switches that have been able to handle predictable and steady traffic. But as we discussed, right, AI agents are fundamentally different. They're going to reshape how networks are delivered and the traffic within them. Right? They're bursty, they're hypersensitive to the latency. And so in this new era, we can't just build bigger boxes. We must build a more intelligent infrastructure that can scale alongside the software that we build. And so at Cisco, right, we have a fundamental advantage in this, right? We think about this through three different layers, right? First off is that while others in this industry have leveraged off-the-shelf or good enough components, we've doubled down inside of Cisco on building our own custom silicon. And people ask, why does that matter? Why does it matter to build your own silicon? Just as Stephen mentioned, is because by designing our own chips, right, we can bake the intelligence directly into that silicon. This is what allows us to deliver post-quantum cryptography at line rate so that we can provide that protection without sacrificing any of the inherent performance. As we move up the stack and we talk about the operating system at Cisco, we're inherently proud of iOS XE, the industry's leading networking operating system that scales across your entire campus. And as you bring the operating system and the silicon together at the system level, this is what fuses everything together in a platform, right? What gives you the visibility, the programmability, the efficiency that you need So when you bring this together, this is magic, right? And to share a little bit about this magic, I want to have Stephanie talk about how we can take this magic and be able to create a unified branch to scale across our environments in a matter of minutes. So with that, Stephanie, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm Stephanie Chastain, and I'm a director of technical marketing. And before we start, happy Cisco Live, everyone. I want to ask a show of hands who has spent days and hours configuring and deploying all of your branches in your network? Am I the only one? All right. Well, I want to talk about Unified Branch, and Unified Branch is going to be a game changer. So what is Unified Branch? It is a full stack branch solution. That means it's routing, it's switching, it's wireless, and it's security. And it's based off Cisco validated designs, powered by automation and AgenticOps. And as you're seeing, it's managed in one dashboard. The components of Unified Branch are the newly announced Cisco Secure Routers, the smart switches, and our wonderful APs. So just as Stephen had a healthcare issue that he wanted to deploy quickly, I have Acme Branch that has a switch, a router, security, wireless. And so I've asked in the beginning, how many have spent days? Well, this would be a long day. Can I do it in less than a minute? Let's see. So I'm going to start with our dashboard, like you've seen from everyone else. And I'm going to ask the platform to do it for me through AgenticOps. This is where the power of automation comes in to make my life simpler and hopefully yours. So I'm going to start with going to the AI assistant, and I'm going to ask it to deploy me a full stack unified branch based off Cisco validated designs. And so it's thinking, and it goes back. The AI assistant runs through all of the workflows, and you can see it picked the unified branch full stack workflow. What is a workflow? It is a cloud-based, low-code or no-code network automation tool built inside this dashboard to bring you the best practices. So let me proceed on all of the steps. So it's a little bit more than Stephen's was to deploy all the wireless switching routing together. And the AI assistant is now listing all of the variables that you could configure to make this happen. All of these variables are customizable. So for this one, I said my name of my branch, I'm going to call it Acme Branch. And I'm going to scroll through the workflow, and you can see all of the variables. All of these are customizable for your network, but I'm just going to leave it same for the sake of time. So I'm going to click again, and yet again, we have to keep a human in the loop. As we mentioned in the beginning, you have to keep a human in the loop, so it allows you one more time to review all of the variables, because once I hit proceed again, this is when AI is going to start doing its magic, and it's going to start deploying it. And you can see all of the steps that it is configuring, step by step, the outcomes, every one to do a full stack branch. You can see there's a lot more than what Stephen showed, even to the point where we have the network URL so that I can start to manage these devices through the AI assistant. Even more than that, as we've already mentioned, recommendations and actions. If I keep scrolling down, you'll see the next steps and recommendations, and it will tell you where to go to next. So what action do I want to take? I said, so AgenticOps, AI assistant's been deploying this branch behind me. If I drill into it, this is a visual representation of every step that it's done. And if you look, it did it in less than 50 seconds. How quick is that? But let's look into this more in detail. As I scroll through the workflow, let's dig into it. Just see. So you don't take in my word for it. You're like, Steph, this is beautiful, but let's drill in a little bit more. Let's click into create a VLAN 2 for the network. And if I go even more, you can start to see all of the API calls that were configured. Looking even more, I can go into a DHCP for DNS. And if you scroll down, all of these are API calls that I could have manually looked up. That meant I would have had to have known the API call. I would have had to have scripted it. and it might have taken me a little more than 50 seconds. As I scroll through the entire workflow, you can see all the steps that were taken, and I look into it a little bit more, and I see that I can actually do security policies as well. And you can see that I've created IPS and IDS, as well as other security policies through this workflow. So as we scroll down, let's see if I brought it back up. And if you look, Acme branch is back online, and it is up and running. Fast forwarded a little bit too fast, but believe me, it was up. We can talk about it more at the World of Solutions as well. So I want to show you guys that unified branch, we talked in the beginning, AgenticOps for operational simplicity. Unified branch, check. Security fused into the network. We talked about putting firewall policies and IPS, IDS, secure firewall, check. But the last one was scalable devices for AI, and this is where I want to step in a little bit more. You might have heard G2 talk about it a little bit yesterday in the keynote, but we are launching a set of Cisco secure routers as well as campus gateways. And these are scalable devices for AI. They're scalable, programmable, they have advanced telemetry, and they're a unified platform. So digging in a little bit, let's get into it. We launched yesterday 2 new 81 series secure routers, and they're both orderable now. And so we have a hybrid managed with iOS XE that gives you 3 times more throughput. It gives you DSL to fiber conversion, all with secure firewall, 98% efficacy from NetSec Open. In addition, we have for our Meraki customers the same 8100 series running the MX OS with 2 times more throughput. So we have that. And lastly, we have a new campus gateway. All of the flexibility for all of your campus sizes. You're used to the larger campuses. Now these are for your medium and growing campus sites. And they do have easy cloud management as well. So Joe, I think this is pretty exciting, and I hope you guys are as well.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we've talked about AgenticOps and how we're redefining simplified operations, and we talked about this new campus and how we're fusing security deep into the network and underpinning it through that strong foundation of AI-ready scalable devices. But I want to kind of bring it home by going back to how we started today's session, right? We talked about this challenge of how we're all being faced with this shift from a human-paced world to a new agentic-paced world, right? We talked about the paradox of how our networks are becoming more complex than ever before, but we have less resources than ever before, right? Over the last hour, you've seen, hopefully, how Cisco is trying to answer some of these challenges, right? You saw the new agentic capabilities to dramatically reduce the time for troubleshooting, to go from hours down to minutes, from an optimization to ensure how do we keep our networks, whether those are wired or wireless or WAN, into an optimum state, driving level of validation to help you to answer challenging questions such as your security posture in a few simple clicks. Right, we touched on the muscle, right? The muscle of our custom silicon that allows us to be able to deliver post-quantum cryptography at line rate. We touched on the shield that allows us to be able to provide a level of policy enforcement distributed across your environment, right? And importantly, you heard from Robert at Bayer, who brings together a perspective of not only why this isn't something to think about in the future, but what he's doing right now in a leading organization to deliver new networks at across a mission-critical set of infrastructure. Now, I want to leave you with a key set of takeaways, right? In this AI-paced world, right, your value from a network operations is not going to be found in the manual CLI entries or how you chase down DHCP errors, right? Your value is going to be in the architecture, right? Your value is in the strategy you bring to your business. Your value is being the visionary who ensures that the network doesn't just stay up, but it helps you to drive your business forward, right? We're augmenting the teams with AgenticOps, right? So that you can get back to, as thought leaders and ultimately key parts of your business, so you can get back to what you do best, right? How you build, how you create, and how you innovate. So thank you for spending the time with us today to be able to talk about how we're delivering across this future-proof workplace. I hope you have a great rest of your Cisco Live and enjoy the rest of your day.